You're not. I'm not. Today is like Christmas Eve is coming around. So many people are panicking because Christmas is right around the corner. I couldn't get to the driveway, can't get to the gas pumps, can't get anything in the store. And those of you that are going to Sam's Club and you're still standing in those long lines, I don't get it. They have an app, people. You can scan your own items and pay for them on your app. You don't have to stand in line. I know that's random, but I just had to throw that out there. I'm
You,
serious.
but you know what? I'm so happy that when my kids were little, that I adopted celebrating Christmas on the New Year. Um, I- it, I would do it again. I would do it again because I had it gave me the opportunity to avoid the long lines, the hectic shopping, the standing in line, uh, and it gave me the advantage of being able to take advantage of you know price slashes and the stores being empty and less traffic. I enjoyed it. My kids enjoyed it more because they celebrated Christmas, the Christmas spirit, like with their mother and their mother's side of the family, and then it's like they had like a second Christmas. It seems like so to speak.
Well, my kids ain't trying to hear that. So last year was the first year that I did not put up a tree.
Uh huh.
I said, you know what? There's so much stress that goes along with putting up a tree, decorating, trying to get gifts, and then I'm like, wait, let me look at the reason for the season. The reason for the season does not outline me putting up a tree. I'm not even supposed to cut down trees and decorate them, but we do it anyway. And is it customary that we continue with the traditions of our family members? Well, it was hard for me
Mm.
because we had lost my grandmother, and our Christmases were every year they were at her house, and before that they were at my great grandmother's house. But it was an easy pivot. It was a reason everybody was off. Everybody flew into town to come to one house, and that was my grandmother's house. And like I said before that, my great grandmother's house. But the problem is, when my grandmother passed away, now both of them are gone. It's like, well, whose house do we go to?
Mm.
And everyone is scattered, moved away, and they no longer have the commitment to get together. And I'm struggling with that. I struggle with that. So I did not put up a tree last year nor this year. And what I told my kids this year is that in lieu of a Christmas gift, I want this to be a season. So we're going to celebrate the season, and I want this to be your season to start your own business.
Mm.
That's what I said.
Okay. Okay.
Well, as you know, we're going to dive into the topic at hand, and that is what is the expectations of a significant other when it comes to step parenting in as a step parent or stepping in as a step parent. That is like, wow.
Let me get ready.
It get,
Um.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
This is
not
gonna be
easy. Let's face it.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I- Step parenting is one of those conversations that we tend not to have, but we should be having those type of conversations. We have you see a lot of conversations going on about, dating and, having a significant other.
Mm-hmm.
When I say significant other, that means like if you're not married. I so what so when you have a significant other, that makes it even more challenging when I sit here and think about it. But we have these conversations about, like I said, dating and relationships with each other as men and women. When I say with relationships with each other, I mean as men and women, but we exclude the conversation of integrated families. And I know sometimes when we think about dating,
Yeah.
we exclude or fail to realize that even when you're dating, to a degree, you're kind of like a distant kind of parent, depending on how serious the dating situation is. Now, dating, that's a whole another conversation. So let me be a little bit more specific. When you are exclusive with someone, exclusive to the degree to where you're living together, or you're around that person and their children more often than not. Because what tends to happen is when you're present, you may not think of it, but depending on what father figure or mother figure that child may have in their life, you become like a indirect type of parent, if that makes sense. Indirectly, you're looked at as a person of influence, meaning that when we're talking about children, I'm talking the things that's going to affect this dynamic is the age of the child. A lot of that, whether it's from infancy to teenage life, um, it's going to affect how challenging that the situation is going to be. Like I said, this whole conversation is one to be unpacked, but it is one that should be talked about. I believe. What is step parenting?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So
And so remember, the title is the expectation of the significant other. Should they be expected to step parent? Because sometimes you may get into a relationship knowing that the person has children, but you may have already raised yours. And are you even ready to go down that road again? Or if you are dating a man who has children and he may be the custodial parent, do you have the type of personality or um willingness to step in to be some type of role model or mentor for these children? Because there's so many different dynamics that can play a role in this. You have some children that are solely with their mother or father, and the other parent is not only outside of the home, but they're outside of access. Like they don't even come around. Maybe twice a year, or those that don't come around at all. Then you have those that are regularly involved. Do you expect less of a person if the father is or the other parent is more involved? Or do you have the same level of expectations? All of those things need to be unpacked.
yeah, you absolutely right. I gotta shoot this to some of my friends out there that definitely can jump in on this conversation. Um, let's do this first. Let's get this conversation out and going. So I guess we're gonna have to start out with number one. What is step parenting?
Okay.
We're gonna have to this is a banana we have to peel slowly. What is step parenting? Have my question is this: have you sat down and thought about step parenting? When I say that, if you let's say you are the custodial parent,
Mm-hmm.
meaning you are the one that has maybe sole custody or whatever, and you're in a relationship, have you even thought about the relationship, or if at all, or the relationship that this person is going to have with your children? If you've made the decision to bring the person that you're dating or exclusive with around your children, and you haven't had this conversation or a conversation of what their relationship, if like I said, if one at all, is going to be like, or maybe this person only comes around when when your children aren't around. Maybe they're with the parent that has court appointed parenting or weekend parenting, or however you want to define it.
Yeah.
But it's a conversation that has to have, and you want to define that. Is that something you want to do before you start dating or going into a relationship or considering a relationship? Do you want to sit back and say, okay, if this relationship is serious or it grows into being serious, would I consider this person being a step parent? Okay, yes. Okay, what? How do I define step parenting? What are the boundaries? What are the parameters of step parenting? What does that look like in your book? Because what has to happen is there has to be a collective conversation between you and that significant other or that person you're uh man, I don't want to say dating,
Mm-hmm. Why not?
because it just makes the conversation seem that much more challenging. It, it I believe honestly, step parenting is probably a little bit more easier within a marriage. And if you agree or disagree with me, put it in the chat. If you're married out there and you're step parenting, does it seem easier? Because if to be honest, as men and I think as women too, but I know because and I never I can't recall ever being a woman. You know what I mean? I say recall, maybe in a past life, maybe I was, but as a man, I've been in enough relationships where I fell into the role of step parenting or mentorshipping or whatever you want to call it. Uh, and it before I've had any type of conversation or any type of direct contact with that woman's child or children, there was a conversation prior to it, or there was a conversation after the interaction, so that I know I was, in the correct or proper boundaries of the scope of my presence, so
Hmm.
to speak. So there's a conversation that has to be had. I think sometimes I believe that sometimes what happens is we get in these relationships and we neglect it so much. We know it exists. We know that the presence exists, but we ignore or neglect having the conversation of defining who I am in the sight of that person's children. Who am I in the sight of that person's children? You may, if you haven't been labeled a step parent, which again, I think step parenting comes a little easier within a marriage. I think if you're in um, a relationship outside of marriage,
Why
if we
does
look
it come easier with a marriage? Because
be
I have my own thoughts.
see
I'm gonna got my fingers crossed, which
okay
means I need to remember what I need to say.
because I believe like in a marriage there's a certain level of commitment. When you
Mm-hmm.
look at a lot of relationships, and that's pretty much what they are, there's no real concrete commitment to that person, meaning that this thing can only last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And if you think about some of these relationships that people been in, people have come and gone out of a children's life. And we can't psychologically or scientifically say that if that heck, we might sometimes we say that it has an effect on the person that was in the direct relationship, the adult, but we don't know if that has, which I'm sure there's probably some science out there. I haven't done the research, but what type of effect that has on the child itself.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say it's a little bit easier in marriage, that okay, we're married, so for a fact that you're going to have a expectation in this child's life. And if the other parent is around, that parent also has to have an understanding that other parent or that other person in his ex's life is going to have some type of indirect contact or responsibility for his or her children, if that makes sense. Meaning, even if that and I know there are people going to feel, look, there are people that feel uncomfortable about that. This is what I do know. You and women are probably going to agree with me on this one. I heard this when I remember I used to hear this so much
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't have any children and I was dating women that had children. It was always that, whenever it's interesting that a man doesn't want you until another man comes around. And then it's like then it's like, okay, what you got this other person around my kids for? Or what is it? Who is he? Better not be calling him daddy or whatever the and I've heard these conversations.
Yeah.
But what you have to understand is when a divorce takes place, let's say, for example, the man is divorcing the woman or the woman is divorcing the man. It's you two that's getting a divorce. It's not the children. Like when me and my kid's mother got a divorce, I wasn't divorcing my children. My children are still my children, and we still going to have a relationship, and you're also going to have an indirect relationship with the children's mother, and you have to understand that. Now if she was to remarry as a mature adult, I have to understand and I have to accept the fact that if my children are small, that the safety of my children is going to rely in the responsibility of that man when I'm not around. And I'm going to have to trust that, meaning that if there's danger or if there's food that need to be had or transportation or whatever, there's some type of safety that my children will be able to get from A to B safely. They'll be able to go to sleep at night knowing that, that if something happens, that he would step up and not only just save my ex, but save my children too.
Right.
That's
Right.
what I'm hoping. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
So
Right. For
we have
sure.
to accept these type of things and think about these. These are things that are going to happen, and as mature adults, and we start talking about step parenting, it's not necessarily saying that they are the parent, but there's a relationship that has to happen between me and that other person. You ain't got to be buddies or nothing like that and share experiences, but we have to understand that, yeah, I understand that that other father is around, and I'm gonna let him be that parent.
Yeah. So what I want to do is definitely acknowledge that we have caller number 8226 on the line. Hi, caller.
Listen, it is good to hear you, Sister LaDonna, and to hear Lorenzo speaking on this subject. I find it quite interesting, actually. I have a total different respect for what I call other parents. I believe steps are made to walk on, so I do not like to use the word steps.
Oh, I like
Um,
that.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a different perspective. And when I look at that whole totality of being another parent in a child's life, I do agree with you, Lorenzo, in regards to there is a difference when you're dating someone and when you're married to someone because your responsibility changes.
Mhm.
And so what happens is that when you're dating someone, what you do for the child is what you want to do, not what you have to do. But
Yes,
when you're married to someone, you not only do it because you want to, but you also do it because you have to
absolutely.
when you're married to them. And so when you're looking at the perspective of being married, some of the things that I think that I find quite interesting is that you need to love this child as your own. Not that you wouldn't. I think when you're dating, you're building that love as if it's your own. But also, you need to support the mother, or if the mother's the one that have the children, or whomever it is, you need to support that other individual as wholeheartedly. You need to support them fully, and then also as a man. So let me just strictly talk from a male's perspective because I don't want to go back and forth to he and she's and all of that. So let me speak from a male perspective. So as a husband, as another father, you have to create a stable and a secure environment for that child or whatever, securing that they feel safe and valued in the blended family, basically. And so most of the time, when you look at society today, you look at most children, although it is shifting some, you look that most children are with who? Their biological mother, right? So as a male, I come into that home. And when I come into that home, I am coming into that home. And so them kids are looking at me as if, is there something that's going to change? They're coming into my security space and all of this type of stuff. So if the children are biologically, if their biological father is involved in them or whatever, as a husband, I must maintain respect and work protectively, basically for the well-being of that child as well. I have to mold, and I'm coming from a believer's perspective as well. I have to also be a true example of Christ-like behaviors in front of those particular children at all times, as a husband to that woman, as well as dating that woman. And so I don't want to really get too deep involved in that, because I think that there's just, you have to really be careful when you're dating someone with children, because I really believe, as a woman, you should not be bringing all of the men around your kids. As a man, you shouldn't bring all the women around your kids when you're dating. You need to make sure that you're dating for purpose as well.
Mm,
So be
yes.
very careful. There's a lot of people that are involved. And if I was dating someone, I thank God for my wife, but if something ever happened to her and I had small children or so, if I was dating someone, I right off the bat, I'm telling you that I have children, but it may be a long time before you ever meet them, because I need to make sure you are the person that is going to step in the shoes of being another parent. You can never take the place of their parent, of
Right.
their mom, or whoever it is, but I need to make sure that you are okay with being the other parent. And it's interesting, and I'm gonna shut up after this, I promise. It's interesting, when you look at the perspective of things, that most times it's okay for them to be step parents that you call, or other parents, or whomever they are, as long as they're giving your child. But when it comes down to disciplining and training or whatever, then you want them to take a back seat. You're not gonna take my money, but I can't tell you how to regulate it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna happen
Right.
in my mindset. No, if I'm going to be another parent, I'm going to be another parent always, which means, guess what? When that child gets sick, guess who's taking them to the hospital? I am. When that child needs some form of discipline or whatever, who's doing it? I'm not waiting on that mother to come in the house and say, your child. No, your child didn't do that. Our child did this, and this is the action that I took because of what they were doing.
Mm.
When somebody got to go pick up their report card and the biological mother cannot do it, the other parent ought to step up. You have to step up, because you're just not know anybody. You are the other parent. And so you have to act like the other parent. So that's my perspective. I got a
Absolutely.
whole lot more, but I just want to leave that
And,
there for you guys.
and
I thought it was a great topic.
and and before we leave, and I don't want to skip, because like I said, this is a topic I I, I thought was very important, but one definitely to be unpacked. One thing you said that really got my attention was, the collaboration, it being a collaborative role. My question is this, us being men, it's and I don't want I don't I was thinking in my mind it was gonna have to be a part two to this, because I don't like to have conversations ending without solutions and everything. But as men, and possibly women too, how do we overcome those obstacles that we run into with being comfortable with having these conversations with the stranger that comes into the lives of our children? Because like I said, I can honestly say I would feel comfortable knowing that a man that was marrying my ex was going to be around my children than a man that was dating my ex. There's a certain level of comfort I would feel with
Well,
that other person coming, that other stranger to me, coming around my ex.
so I've had two sets of children. I'm gonna jump in here. Y'all men ain't gonna dominate this one right here.
Go ahead.
Wait,
Okay.
before you jump in,
Go
LaDonna,
ahead.
can
Yeah.
you can you repeat that question? Because I need to get a hold of that really.
Mhm.
Can you repeat that question? I need to know what you're
Well,
really asking.
because when I look at and these are conversations that I've had with people, and conversations that I've witnessed, where there's just a discomfort that I've noticed that sometimes people would have, when they get into a second relationship or a second marriage, where there's this discomfort of how the relationship is going to go with that other person that's with the ex, that being
Okay.
around their children, if that makes sense. How do
Hmm.
you
I got
develop
it.
or if you develop a relationship at all with that other person.
Mm.
So how do you, for example, if in many cases, women usually have sole custody of the children in many cases. But let's say, you have the other parent who has, I don't know, it might be, like I said, mentioned earlier, court appointed parenting, which is on the weekends or every other weekend or however they schedule it. How
Mhm.
do you develop that? How do we develop that comfort level and that sense of security, with the relationship with the parent that you don't have a direct relationship with? With me being, let's say if I'm dating someone that has children, how do I secure that comfort level or develop that relationship with her ex? Or should there be a relationship established at all?
Absolutely, it should, in my opinion, because if someone is going to be around your child, you should definitely know who that is that's going to be around your child. As I was trying to mention earlier, I've had two sets of children. When I had my older set of children, I ended up getting married before they went to college, let's say. And my older son had a relationship with his dad that was very sporadic. And I insisted, or he wanted my then husband to meet his father. Unfortunately, my then husband was not interested in meeting his father. It broke both of our hearts because even though I'm no longer with that person, this is still your stepson's or your son's father. And he wants you to be brought into the fold to meet who his dad is. So it should have been a warm handoff. I don't expect us to like tailgate and have parties together, but there will be times when you should be able to coexist at the same event or function because at the end of the day you're still all family and it shouldn't be separate in my opinion. I think that it's important for a conversation to be had. I spoke to quite a few women who have their children custodially, and caller 4378, I see you. Give us a moment. I've spoken to them custodially, and their concerns are almost the same. It's like, well, if my kid was with their father, I want to know the woman that he's dating that's taking care of my son or daughter, that's doing things for my son or daughter. And the same thing goes for even for me. I want you to know the person that's taking care of or helping me, because if that's going to be their position in my life, then you should know the person that's ultimately in your child's ear. You really should. It shouldn't be a high and by situation. It should be it should be a relationship building setup. And you don't have, like I said, you don't have to be best buds. But to me, it just makes sense. Like I know my son's father's girlfriend. Like I have her phone number. And we have had conversations. So because I needed this, I've actually hugged her because I need to feel her spirit. She's around my children, so I need to feel her spirit, and her spirit seems to be good. Her spirit seems to be good. Caller number 4378. You're on the Relationship and Show.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hello.
How are
hello.
you?
Doing well. How about
Hi.
yourself?
Doing well. Doing well.
Not too bad. Just kind of listening to what you guys are talking about. And I guess, I coming from a relationship where my daughter's father got married. And matter of fact, is still married. He got married when she was 11, and they're still married now. And she is 44. So that just goes to show you when you talk about bringing somebody into a child's life, that those relationships can be long relationships. She had children and he had children. And so as they, got to know each other, they decided to introduce their children to one another. And now, obviously, they're brothers and sisters. So that in that situation, that was a good deal. I think what I'm kind of gleaming from the two of you is, when do you introduce those other partners into your children's lives? If they're just somebody I'm kicking it with or whatever, I'm not going to worry about introducing them to my kids, because that's just kicking it with them. if we're talking about from the onset, we're building a relationship, I still think that you ought to get to know people in each one of their seasons. And that's what happens, because in my experience back in the past, I feel like a man could move. You could be dating a man, having a great relationship with a man. Next thing you know, he going out the door with that same old green trash bag with his things in that he came with.
Why was it?
Okay,
Why was it
and
green?
then,
Why was it green, caller? Why was it green? Was he the
honey,
Grinch?
because it was no, because it's a lawn bag. You know what I'm saying? Because he's
Oh my
always
goodness.
outside.
Okay.
He's always outside, and so that's what that's about. But let me just say this: they come in and they get to know your children, and your children fall in love with them and fall for them. And then when they leave, they just walk out the door and they don't even say goodbye to your children.
That's true.
And that's the hurt. That's the hurtful part. Don't. It's not working out between me and you, but it might have worked out for you and my child.
Right.
And when you walk out, and just recently, I'm a therapist, and we encountered a situation like this, where the mother and the father got divorced. They both had two minor children.
Mm-hmm.
So when he left and took his kids out, the kids didn't get a chance to say goodbye to each other, and he didn't say goodbye to her kids. And so for the last year, her little girl has been grieving. Like, when do we get to say goodbye? When do we get to see our brothers and our brother and our sister? And so when I asked my girlfriend about it, she said, well, we just trying to keep it. He doesn't seem to be interested in all that, so we're trying to keep it amicable. But guess what happened? His brother works at the same school as my little girl, my girlfriend's little girl. So now she's at the school asking him, where's my brother? Where's my sister? I want to see them. I want to see them. And so it's in a tenuous place, because now the mother has asked him, stay in your place as a teacher. Don't be trying to act like an uncle and all of that, because I don't want to confuse her. But guess what? The little girl is still confused. She came home from school crying. He had showed her a videotape of the two little kids saying hello to them. We miss you. Hello. We wonder where you are. We haven't seen you. So he showed her the videotape, and then he made a little videotape of her saying hello to them. Well, when she went home and told her mother about it, she just burst into tears.
Oh yeah.
Because she is still grieving that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, just to wrap all of that up, you can see how that can turn out. But I think, just to wrap all of that up, you have to see a person in all four seasons: daddy, husband, boyfriend, work, and see what kind of person you are dealing with, because there's something that is missing in every relationship that just starts so haphazardly, and that is whether or not the person you are getting into a relationship with is relationship ready, relationship maturity. And inside of that relationship maturity and readiness, you will find those conversations about when you should be introducing someone to your children.
So what do you think between you and our other caller, 8226? I know that we kind of divided whether you're dating someone versus married to someone. So let's say you're seriously, exclusively dating and things look promising. And you've met the children and you've been integrated into the family and, and all of those things. What do you think the expectations of I don't want to say step parent anymore, of the of the other parent, the other soon to be parent? Do you flip that switch the moment you say I do? All right, now suddenly I love you to the kids, and suddenly I'm going to step into the kids on the day that you say I do? Or can it lead up to that? Can you have those expectations that they have those moments of mentorship and accessibility and conversation to build that trust and to have direction? Because I would hope that anyone dating anyone, because I'm speaking, based on men and women, custodial parents, a custodial parent that's dating anyone, I'm hoping that they would only date someone and take them seriously to integrate into their family. They would date someone that looks to be someone who is other parent worthy.
Well, let me just interject here just for a second. I would like to think that as we can stop all this just dating people haphazardly in the first place, right? We're gonna date somebody. Let's date with a purpose. Second of all, know who you're dating. Again, like I said, get yourself some receipts, some check and balances before you start bringing people into your children's lives. Because guess what? All of us have suffered trauma, and our children have suffered trauma in the midst of our broken and dysfunctional relationships and what they're seeing on TV, all of that. And so you don't want to bring somebody into a relationship with your children who very well could be hiding their own trauma. And one of the things that as a therapist, I like to, I talk to couples about when they're coming in and they have children. Take your children with you to therapy. Go, find out what's going on with those kids. Because guess what? You're not the first set of parents those kids had. The mama is, but the kids also had a daddy. But what if the kids didn't have a father? What if he isn't even a father to his children? You're not going to tell me that you're going to come into my life and be a father to my kids when you haven't even been a father to your kids. It's going to be very hard for me to hear you saying, well, this is my opinion about the children. As far as I'm concerned, you don't have an opinion about the children because you haven't shared that same opinion with your children's mother.
Well, how long how long is he going to be crucified for that? Let's say his children are now grown.
Hold on for a minute. We're not crucifying him. Now, if his children were grown, that's something different. And so maybe he has worked through that and he gets a second chance to work with a second family.
Exactly.
But then that is the past. If you're telling me that you learned from that, you don't have to keep on bringing up, well, my kids and my kids and my kids, because maybe you didn't do all of that for your kids in a timely enough manner that you feel like, well, now I'm going to put that burden on your children. If you're together and you have children, let's work it out in a family unit. Now, I'm a systems therapist. That means that we believe that all problems come out of the family system. So when the homeostasis, say divorce, breaking up, marrying new people, when that homeostasis is off kilter, you're going to have some different problems coming from each person in the family. And so therefore we need to know where we stand. Because what if you had arguments with a boyfriend before you met this guy? Now, he's a really good guy. You know what I'm saying? Who says he's going to argue? The kids haven't seen him argue. But just for a moment, though, if they see the two of you having a disagreement, that could trigger the kid. And I think that we should talk to our children about what's going on. A little girl told me, she was 6 years old when a little client, I asked her, what's going on? Why haven't you told the teacher the little boy's been bothering you? She said, because I ain't no snitch. Now, you tell me at 6 years old, you're going to let someone continue to pull your hair, bother you, do all this kind of stuff. And because you've been listening to people say that you're not a snitch, that you're not going to tell the teacher so you can find help. I say that to say that in families and in family units, we don't snitch. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell your mama. Don't tell your daddy. Keep it a secret. And so therefore we end up with all of this trauma and this resentment inside of us because who do we talk to then? Who can I share this with? I'm a kid. So we have to start knowing the people who we are dating. And I really believe that therapy, going into not just the marriage therapy, the counseling you go to when you get ready to get married, I'm saying that both of you have generational messages coming out of your own families. I think that you need to get to know each other. What kind of things triggered you? Matter of fact, did you have a great, when you were a kid, did you have a great holiday time? Did you love your family? Did they celebrate together? Because let me tell you something. There's nothing worse than having children who are used to celebrating and being celebrated, and then you get with somebody else and he come along or she comes along and says, oh, we don't do all of that. Oh, I don't hug. I don't kiss. I don't say I love my kids. And you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And so we got to, we got to know. We got to know who we with, because I'm happy. I love the holidays. So you know what made me the most unhappiest during the holidays was the guy who I was dating. When I asked him would he go downstairs and get this Christmas tree and bring the Christmas tubs upstairs, and he was all like, I don't want to do all that. That ain't how I feel. Well, then I'm with the wrong one, because I want you to go downstairs and get the Christmas stuff, even if you just drinking a beer while I'm putting the stuff up or we listening to some music. I don't want to be with the Grinch.
Right. Well, he had the green bag, though. He had the green bag.
Right.
Go ahead, 8226. Hold on, 4378. Go ahead, 8226.
Okay.
There is a lot. So I want to come from a spiritual perspective versus the natural world perspective. because many people can tell you what the world would do and how they act and react and all of that type of stuff. But let me talk about a spiritual perspective. It's so much to unravel here. First of all,
Yeah.
Lorenzo talked about how can we possibly develop a relationship with our wives or husbands, new wives, or whoever, our ex-wives or ex-husbands, new husbands, or whatever, for the sake of the children. What are some steps with that? I want to give you a couple of them. First of all, you have to have a Christ-like attitude when you're going in. So you got to basically make sure that you're praying to God, asking for help and guidance or whatever. So when you look at Colossians, if I'm not mistaken, the third chapter, if I'm not mistaken, where it says, bear with each other and forgive one another. Forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. So blessed are the peacemakers, going into the book of Matthew, or the Gospel of Matthew, that talks about blessed are the peacemakers, for they are called the children of God. That's the first thing, is make sure that you have a relationship with God and praying to Him and asking. Then the second thing is actually putting the children first. Understand you're in this relationship, but there's children there, so know how to put them first. Where in the book of Proverbs, it talk about training up a child in the way they should go, and when they old, they won't depart from it, right? And then the next thing is set a positive tone, I believe, when I'm doing therapy, or shall I say counseling. She say therapy, I say counseling. When I'm counseling married couples and people that want to be married and things like that, one of the things is, from the beginning, you got to set a positive tone in the start. When you start that relationship. So when you first meet, or you're engaged with him or you're engaged with her, be intentional about establishing a positive tone, right? And acknowledging their role in the child's life, or whatever, or would be their role in a child's life, and things like that. And then show some respect, even if it's not reciprocated. And so you got to be very careful with that, because everybody's not strong enough for that, knowing how to act or not react when someone is acting. You got to know how to do that when the other partner is not. I think another thing that you look at is make sure that you have open lines of communication. There's several steps, by the way, Lorenzo, so we could talk offline and give you all of them, but there's several steps. One thing that the other caller said was that she talked about being intentional, and which is something I said right in the beginning. She used the word purpose like I used the word intentional. And so what that is that we have to date with purpose. Don't just date just to be dating. If you don't bring your kids around. Now, if you want to be out there loosey-goosey, or whatever word you want to use, if that's what you want to do, please don't involve the kids around that. The kids don't need to be involved in that type of situation and or relationships, right? They don't need to be involved in that. You got to make sure that you are careful how you are involving your child. And then you've made the question, when should I involve them? When you know that this is going to be a serious relationship. When you know, we can tell you, other people can't tell you when that relationship is going to be serious or if it's going anywhere. That's something between you and that partner. You ought to know when it's going to be serious. Have that conversation with that partner, with that person. Hey, are we dating with purpose? Are we dating to get married? Are you dating me because you're looking for a wife? Are you dating me because you're looking for a husband? Say that right in the beginning. We're going into 2025. Don't hide nothing. Just say what you want.
Wait, what? Can you repeat that question? I'm writing it down.
Oh, just ask them. Are you dating to be married? Are you looking for a wife? Are you looking for? Be that right in the beginning. Let me tell you, no bigger lie than people saying, "Oh, that scared me right in the beginning." She talked about, "Am I looking for a wife?" No, that ain't scare us. We ain't want to be. We weren't looking for no wife. So that's the excuse that we use to give you.
Yeah.
Now, men ain't gonna like me, but I'm just telling you the truth. Make sure that you open that type of open communication. If I'm meeting you, listen, I am dating with purpose and intentional. I know what I'm looking for. I want children, or I don't want children. I want a wife, or I don't want a wife. Whatever that particular case is, go in open.
Yeah.
People, believe me, people respect honesty more than anything. I know I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I respect honesty. Let's be honest with them. People, they want to be honest, because now, as the therapist said, months later, whatever, you looking, and all of a sudden he won't bring up the Christmas tree. You should have known in the beginning that he didn't
But it wasn't Christmas
didn't believe
time.
in Christmas.
It wasn't
It didn't make
Christmas
a difference.
time.
It doesn't make a difference. Let me tell you why. Because you'll understand they don't celebrate holidays. You need to know if you're dealing with a Jehovah's Witness and you're a believer. You need to know you're dealing with a Muslim and you're a believer. You need to know if they Apostolic, Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ, Church of the Living God, Methodist, Episcopal, and all of the rest of it. You need to know that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
This is the conversation that you need to have. This is what I believe in. Date with that purpose.
And we had it's interesting.
I told you I'm coming from a believer's perspective. I'm not coming from the world perspective.
It's so interesting.
And it's so funny that you say that, because we had this conversation earlier, and we were talking about how even just in dating, people tend to put their best foot forward, even if it's the things that they don't like to do. We all ask the person when dating, so what do you like? And we'll do those things knowing that we don't even like doing it anyway. So then once you get your foot in the door, you in the relationship, you gradually stop doing those things that person liked, because you didn't like doing them anyway in the beginning.
So now I know you're a liar.
Right.
Yeah. And then you wonder, and that's why we hear people say, you know what? In the beginning, the person used to do this. Now they done changed. But they didn't like doing that stuff to begin with. You done gave him all the tools and all the arsenal, to make you happy and to bring joy to your heart. And now they're not even doing those things anymore. They didn't like it doing it in the beginning.
But this
That's
circle,
what you got to have, LaDonna. I'm
Yeah.
going to say this. Let me give you this. That's when you really need to have the spirit of discernment. You need to be able to feel them people, feel them when they lying and all of that type. You ain't going to know everything. Now, I'm not telling you you're going to be perfect and you're going to know everything. I'm not saying that. That'll be a lie from the pits of hell. But what I am saying, you do need the spirit of discernment. I told my wife right in the beginning I was scared of heights. Right in the beginning. And I am, even to this day.
So you
20
ain't
plus years, I am still scared of heights, right? But you know what I told her? But I'm willing to go to Great America with you, and I'm willing to get on the rides. Scared as I don't know what. And at that time I said, scared as hell. I don't know what. But I'm willing to still get on the ride.
So the eagle, you would get on the
And-
eagle scared of heights.
Yes, I did back then. I won't get on the Eagle today, but
I
I
won't
will get on
either.
rides.
That's the oldest roller coaster at Great America. I still call it
So I
Great
won't get
America.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't get on there now because I know how old it is, but I will get on rides. I still overcome my fear because I believe that you ought to do things to try to overcome things that you don't like. I'm going to try it. I'm going to test it out. Hey, I don't like this. I don't like that, but I tried.
Right.
And that's it. That's all. Now I tried it. I don't like it. I'm not
Now what if I don't
That's
I don't like kids, but I'll try it?
No, that's a different story. I know you don't like them, but you don't like them in the beginning. Guess what? You need to, especially you got kids. My kids are test dummies.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the reason why I say that,
that,
I've seen horror stories where women have dated men or men have dated women that really didn't care for children, and they did everything to comfort them, and they kept them separate. And when the two got together, it became very dangerous. So I know that that's not our topic tonight, but I was just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Okay. What? Well, let me say this though. On a more serious note here, the therapist, it made me. She really made me think about some things when she said, let's see, what did she say? She said it might not have worked between you, but it may have worked out between you and the children. And it made me reflect on, some past relationships, because when we have these conversations, it's really, especially with me, whenever I go on any type of show or have any type of conversation, I not only want to change perspectives if I can, or but it's also to learn something myself. Because when she said that, sometimes I believe that we don't think about that yes, it might not have worked out between you and that person, but it may have worked out with the children. Because I sat back and thought about how many times I played kickball, went outside and played, teaching how to ride a bike and doing father-like things with the child. Then I'm not there all of a sudden. Then you got to start. Then I started sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, now not only did I leave that child asking questions, possibly, but then you leave that mother with excuses to make after that.
And those
if there's
excuses
questions
can
being
go in
asked.
any direction. It could be, she can shield the situation, or she can make it all that much more uglier,
Right.
just to protect her decision. We have another caller on the line, 6442. Welcome to Relationshiping. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What are your thoughts? Go ahead. Oh, I thought you were saying
Uh,
something. What are your thoughts on the topic? We're talking about what should be, or your expectations of your significant other when it comes to parenting. I said step parenting. Now I
Yeah,
just
we
feel
had to
like,
change the
yeah,
title.
I feel like I can't say step parenting anymore. Other parenting, or being the other parent.
so, so you're saying what is my perspective as far as like if I was divorced and remarried? Are you like
Yeah,
basically? Because I just called
yeah,
in. So okay.
yeah. Or your
And
significant
what
other
do
when
I
it comes to your
feel
children.
the significant other in my life now? Is that what you're saying? What do
Well,
I expect for him to?
yeah,
Well, in
Well,
in the
I mean,
dynamic of, as what we were talking about with step parenting, because it's one of the more challenging situations that we don't talk about a lot when we remarry or in relationships, is how do we unravel the challenge of introducing children to the new husband, and where do we go, and what direction do we take developing boundaries and the when, where, and whys of step parenting. We're trying to get
I
views on establishing that.
well, when I did that, I basically took my time really. Of being the person being around before it really occurred into the marriage, having a person show up, like, we did different things together. My children were they were military children. So, you know, they would go and visit their father and then come back. A lot of times they didn't want to go visit their dad. They would rather stay home because I did trips with them. I introduced them. We just did a lot of involvement in activities, but you do get a lot of parents, which I feel like when you become a parent and you're going through with your ex or whatever, I just think that children should never be involved. So it's according to how you want to nurture the relationship. And I really did it differently. I never involved my children in any adult battles as a lot of ex or with the mother or the father, because they're bitter. It's according to how you want to work it all together as a parent. But I just had it really different. We just did a lot of trips and they got to know that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But in them
when I
getting
first
to know that person, caller, did you start having certain expectations because you knew they were going to be in their life?
you know what? No, I did set boundaries for myself because that other person always knew and how I felt about about my children.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just very, it was different. It was more that I didn't, do, like when I did certain things, I made sure, like, okay, my children are very important to me. I mean, I set the boundaries, up front,
Mm.
Yeah.
and so they kind of knew, like, my children, they came first. So it's either you went with the flow or you didn't, because if you didn't really go with the flow, then I couldn't be in a relationship. That's just how it was for me. Like and if they had children, I wanted the same thing with their children, but we had a hard time with the other parent.
Right.
When
Yeah.
you come into a bitter situation, it's just hard. So I just know with my ex, we set boundaries. No matter what the relationship is, our children came first. We nurtured it. Their father was involved, even with the person I was with.
Mm.
I made sure of that. We just wanted our children to be healthy. But you always get that, the one that doesn't want to. So it was hard for my husband to, now he's my husband, but it was hard for him to be involved with his children because his mate, and he was always wondering, like, why is your relationship so, it was so excellent, because I said, because we took ourselves out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can just remove yourself out of it and just think about the children, it was just easy, for it to transition the way it needed to be, even when the girls came up to graduating from high school and having, both of them there. I remember the time when one of my daughters graduated in Florida. And I wasn't married at the time with the partner I'm with now, and he went and picked up the father from the airport. So it's just like it just worked out, and we were barbecuing, we were at a resort. It just worked out. It's just of how you want to do it as a parent.
Love it.
It's
Love it.
maturity.
So let me ask this question. So so are you saying your husband came into your kid's life? Am I correct?
Yeah, my husband that I'm with now, yes.
Okay.
And they were young.
I would suspect that. And now, do you have boys, girls, or
I have girls, and
and see that, and real quick, because I kind of suspected that listening to you talk. I would think that the dynamic is that much more challenging, especially when you have a husband coming into a relationship and you have girls, because at the end of the day, it's all about the safety of your children. And I guess my question to you, especially with you having girls, I was your conversation just a little bit more different when you talked about parenting and roles and his assistance, with helping you with your. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say this. I was very protective of my girls.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even marry right away. I got married when my children were out the house. To be honest with you, like they were adults. I didn't want, because in the relationship, from the jump, I knew. I mean, even though I had a relationship, but my children were more important, and that person had to have patience. So my kids came first. And my relationship came last. I'm sorry to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was willing to wait and work with me. When I had things that I had to do, like go to recitals or whatever. I mean, he was still there or whatever, but he knew my children came first. I mean, everybody's relationship is unique. It didn't mean that I didn't care, love, or whatever, but I just wanted to be there nurturing to my daughters, because it was, I didn't make it hard that when we did divorce, my daughters was a little bit older with their father, and they understood, but I was still working things in. I didn't, even though they seen that person around, I still made it about my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes sense.
And we
I have
had
a question.
is that Pastor Q speaking?
Yes,
Because I was
have
gonna
a
say
question.
something. Yeah, I was gonna refer to you.
I do not want to pry. And if this is asking too many questions, just say, none of your business. And I promise you, I am not offended.
No,
at
I'm
all.
wide open. No, I'm
Okay.
open.
You stated you started dating this guy when your kids was young, but you did not get divorced until they were older.
Well, not that, like, they didn't even, it was to a situation that me and my ex, we knew it was done, but it wasn't really a priority for us right then and there.
Okay, so you were married.
So we were separated.
Right.
We
but
were
you
separated.
Were still married.
Yeah.
And you were dating this person. Were you all living together?
Not right. What the guy? No, not right away. Mm-mm.
Not right away, but he lived with you before you all got married. Am I correct?
Yeah, he did gradually. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking those questions is because of the way you presented this story. And so when you said you didn't marry him until you all got older, he's still playing this role of being another parent, if you will. He's playing this role because he's in the house with you guys, but yet you didn't marry the guy until later, until after they move out. Then you marry him, but the marriage was really still there. It was kind of there.
It was legal, but it was kind of there. It was right. It was kind of there. Just not legal. Right. It was to a certain degree, but I have to say that their father was still in their lives. Like they would go for the summer, he would come down. It was like he was even though he was in another state, and it was funny because the man that I ended up marrying, he had a relationship with him too. It was very touchy of who I allowed to discipline my children. Like I was very protective of my daughters, even though it didn't even have to be if they were a female or a male. I was just very protective. If it was something that they did or whatever, he would come to me, and if it was something that if I wasn't able to be reached, he would actually call their father, and have a conversation with them. That was so unique about it. My daughters,
I could you on how you maneuvered through it. I just have a different.
I didn't hear. You had cut out. I'm sorry.
No problem. I commend you how you did it. However, I have a total different perspective of it. I'm coming from a spiritual aspect as well, but I just have a total different perspective. As I told him earlier, especially
I have a father that's a pastor, so yeah.
Yeah, it's coming from, a different perspective, though, respecting other people's perspective. I just think, and I told the host, both hosts, I told them this: I am not, and this from, I don't care if it's a worldly perspective or spiritual, you will not get my dime. I'm not going to take your child to school, take them to hospitals, go to recitals and all of that, and I can discipline them. If I'm going to be a parent, let me be a parent. I need to be a host.
It depends on what the discipline. It just depends on. Well, my daughters was very respectful.
It's not just your daughter.
On the discipline. When you're saying discipline, what do you mean? Like you gotta
in form. I'm gonna discipline your child as if it's mine. I don't care what kind of form.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if he felt something was wrong, what was so unique that my daughters would go to him quicker than me and say, "Can you talk to mom? Can you talk to mom about this or whatever?" It's not that they didn't have a relationship, but he was very gentle with it. I'm not going to say that he wasn't able to tell them right from wrong, but still on the same token, I was still very protective of my girls. And believe it or not, even when it came to their father, I was just very protective of my daughters.
Is it possible for someone else to inject?
And I'm glad that you're collaborating on this, because now that my daughters are grown, their father, he remarried during COVID, and it's not even a good. I'll get on to that part afterwards, because it's crazy how my daughters see the perspective of that. And I have one of my daughters here now, and if y'all want, I can let her, talk about it. But the discipline, they just, in their mind, even though it was separated, and there's a lot of things that my daughters did not share, they just felt like their father wasn't there all the time for them.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, it's funny how children see certain things as they get older than what they see when they're younger. But I was always pushing, it's just really, it's kind of deep.
Yeah. And caller, can I call you by name, or you want me to stick with your numbers?
call me by name.
Well, Regina Hall, author Hall, is on the line. That's who's been talking. You have Pieces of Me. Your book is out. I'm gonna let me roll to the next caller because we have quite a few of them out there.
Sure.
So hold that thought and get your daughter Sierra. Is it Sierra that you're gonna grab?
No, it's Kayla.
Kayla. All right, cool. Hold on. All right, we got 7742. Good evening.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what is your comment on the topic, sir? We are talking about the expectations of the significant other to the when it comes to step parenting the children.
Well, in this society, I would say 97% of relationships you get into, from my aspect, the woman's going to have a child. Not off the top, you get the right to discipline, but if we get into a full-fledged relationship, I'm with the caller that said that if you want me to take them to school and all of that, yeah, I definitely have to do disciplining from A to Z, no matter what it takes. I have to put that belt to butt, take your phone, go lock up in your room. I need that right, or they can't get in my car and get disrespectful. And the caller, Regina, whatever she
Regina
said
Hall,
that
yeah.
if the child sees that the mama is gonna protect them that way, they're gonna use that. They're gonna use that. So therefore, that's gonna cause a division in between the parents.
But I
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that
my
myself.
daughter, they didn't cause division. They didn't cause division.
You know, that's great. If I interrupt, that is great that they didn't or whatever. But in 2025, Lorenzo, you stated something about was it a boy or a girl? In 2025, I'm concerned about if it's a boy or a girl, period, because right now people are touching everybody and not just the opposite sex.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about that wholeheartedly, but I'm also with the caller that just called and said, you know, disciplining a child he agrees with wholeheartedly, and they do play you against each other. Kids do that,
but it's all about
communication.
Right, but it's also about
I'm
communication.
not saying every child. I will not say every child, Ms. Hall. I promise you.
Yeah. No, I know, but it's all about communication. It's all.
And I agree with you.
All about communication and how you raise your children. And if I knock
and
my
they don't
child
have to
out,
just play
I can
you
just
because
knock them
you.
out.
They don't just play you because you're the other parent. Though.
Mama did say knock you out, but go ahead, Pastor Q, and finish land your plane, sir. Land your plane, sir.
They do not just play you because you're the other parent. They play you even when you are biological mama and daddy. They will play you against each other.
Absolutely.
So let me tell you something. I have a 30-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 12-year-old by the same woman. And I know, and each generation of my kids have tried everything in the book to deal with me and my wife. And I know they do it. I know I've spoken to couples constantly about that. So I just think we do have to be careful how they do try to play us against each other all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And so every child is different. Every child may not deserve a spanking on the hand. Some kids, I got one kid that all I have to do is raise my voice, and he is going to cry and get himself straight. I ain't got to touch him at all.
But he probably saw your previous actions.
He probably did.
Okay, so that laid the foundation. That laid the foundation.
The last child is always the change of life child.
You're right. You're right. Amen to that.
Them last children, even though you may do things, but some of these parents, the child probably have you locked up in the closet. But
you're right.
But with mine, they just couldn't do that. Like, we were my relationship was very unique. Mm-hmm. No matter what odds that I felt against my ex-husband, we still kept that communication open. Even when my children, I was very open with my kids' conversations, even when they were in school. I never, and it goes to show you, I never had a conversation with a teacher without my children on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I never, it was just like with my kids, I always told them, you tell the truth, even if you may feel like you're going to get knocked out. You're more of a chance of not getting knocked out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So but I also knew that teachers were something else. So they couldn't do that. Like, I know kids would play each other's hands, but we would be on the phone talking. I said, well, let me just, we had one that would just tell them, like my daughter told her father first when she had a child, besides telling me. I was really the disciplined one,
disciplinarian.
Yeah.
But they were still very open with me.
Yeah. All right. So let me, I love these conversations and comments. I want to make sure we get to everyone that took the time to call in. Call it 3405. You got a comment on the topic?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. First of all, I want to say this is a very, very interesting conversation. Having been in the situation as Ms. Hall, I agree with Pastor Q, but I'm the mother of 3 sons, and I had a man come into my life, and he became the step parent and my children's father, and he developed an amazing relationship and basically co-parented my children.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to speak to the transparency that she would have with her daughters, those moments of truth. And I really, really respect that, because I think most of us forget that we were kids one day, a long time ago or a short time ago.
Mm-hmm.
When you allow yourself to shut them down from not being able to communicate with you, you rarely ever get to know what's really going on inside of them. So that's a critical point where we tie their hands and our hands, because they get to this impasse in life and we can't help them because we don't know what's going on. Yes, we have to rely on prayer. Yes, we have to set up structured relationships, and we put these hedges around and protect our kids. But it's all about, honestly, taking a chance, because that person that you bring into your life, you can only hope that this is really the right person.
Yes, that is so true.
You don't know.
That's a good nugget. That's a good nugget.
You do not know until life starts to develop itself. And as this path goes on, it feels good, it looks good. Whoa, wait a minute, trouble just came. Now you find out who you really with. So I just want to say that I agree with all the very valid points of other callers that I heard. Pastor Q, Ms. Hall, I can't wait to get your book. This has been very, very, very fulfilling for me. I pulled up in my driveway, and I haven't gotten out the car yet. I'm just here in the car enjoying all of this. And before I jump off the call, I just want to say one more little piece to this. And I'm sharing my story because it's real. I had the perfect situation. 3 sons, an amazing man that came into my life, brought so much value. I would never hate on this brother. But at the end of the day, when life developed and life started lifing, he was not that guy that could handle that type of pressure. Mm-hmm. He could not handle it. So he resorted to doing some things that caused he and I to have a wedge between us that was almost unrepairable. But time and coming to build a different type of relationship for myself with God.
These people, they fucking can't even.
Uh-oh. I hear you
I'm
cussing,
sorry?
Whoever that is. Hey. I mean, you can cuss on here. Well, you can cuss on here, but I hear you cussing. Go ahead.
I was just saying, how, these days you just gotta have a relationship with God. Is all I was thinking. I'm sorry.
So the point that I'm making, no one could tell me that this wasn't the right man for me, but it didn't. You have to make a decision, and what my decision was, this is the person I want to take the chance with, because every time you take a chance, and I kept him away from my kids for 2 years. Mm-hmm. We dated. He would go to the park and meet. He knew my oldest son. Okay, he knew who he was, but he didn't know who that man was to me, because that was
Right.
between me and him.
Yeah.
He would go to the park. He even coached he was his baseball coach, and he didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh, wow.
when life started lifing and things began to show themselves, like, this is hard, he collapsed. And he was a big man, and he was a very big man to pick up and hold up forever.
Yeah.
So me being strong and able to deal with some of the things that he just could not handle, my legs bubbled under.
Oh.
And our relationship fell apart. However, what she said about true transparency is the reason why my oldest son was able to come and sit with me and tell me what was happening, because he couldn't stand it anymore. There was no molestation or anything like that, but he was witnessing his stepdad having extracurricular affairs.
Mm-hmm.
He was watching this happen and putting it all together. He's like 10 years old, and he's figuring out this guy's cheating on my mom.
Yeah.
And he's doing it in my mother's house.
Oh, wow.
So these things, now mind you, again, this is after he's been there. He's done all these amazing things. We bought a home, we got cars, we're doing great, and we're 5 years in.
Wow.
But things will change. And at the end of the day, can you make it through it, is all I'm saying. And sister, I applaud you for having that type of relationship, and all of us yearn for that, whether we want to speak it out loud or find ways to find something wrong with it. I applaud you for having that. God bless you, and may you continue to grow everywhere you go.
Wow. Thank you so much, caller 3405. And guys, when I say the last four digits of your phone, I know who you are once I hear your voice, but I don't want to put you on blast unless you want to be blasted. And if you want to say your
You
name,
can blast
feel
me.
free.
You know I love you.
All right,
you know
Tammy
I
Ain't no
McDowell.
blast.
All right, Tammy
Ain't
McDowell,
no
Alex
blast.
Mashad, Jacqueline Underwood, Regina Hall. That's what I'm saying, Pastor Q. But I want to get to this one caller that has not been identified, and then I'm gonna come back to Jacqueline because she is the mental health therapist. Okay, let's go to caller number 4561. I feel like I called like some lottery numbers. Caller 4561.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Of course. I know that voice too, but I'm going to go ahead and let you get it in.
Well, I think this is a very interesting conversation, and I'll come
Very.
from the lens of someone who was a child in a cohabitated relationship between a man and a woman with the kids. And as the child of someone who had, a strong, independent mother in my life, who loved and who, showed me and poured love into her kids, and had a relationship with, a man who I think tried to insert himself incorrectly in my view. Early on in my life, I think one caller said that she waited for, to bring her significant other around before showing him to her sons. And I remember, like, day one, this man coming into my room. It's going to be a great room for this baby, right? And so automatically starting off.
Wait, what did he say? You were breaking up. What did he say when he came in your room?
This is going to be a great room for us. Like, so basically switching my room to his room with my mom, right? And so I'm like, well, I've been living in since I was, born. I'm 14 now. I'm not leaving. And so I think that, us starting off that relationship like that kind of really colored how the next couple of years would go, because it was always like, when I met this person, I had to call him by his last name. I didn't understand why I had to do that if he was living in the house with me with my mom, and they were, and he was, loving on my mom and, taking me to school, like all those things early on. And I think that he wanted to have the power and the responsibility to discipline me and to rear me in a certain way, but he didn't have the commitment to my mother where I would respect him enough for him to even have that power, right? I think in order for a man who's going to come into a woman's life to help raise her children that are not his, I think there needs to also be a certain level of commitment beyond, baby, let's live together and I'm going to pay your bills and I'm going to take your children to school. I think there needs to be engagement, marriage, something that shows me, or even adoption of this child, like, hey, I'm going to actually take on the responsibility. If you get sick tomorrow, my love, my woman, I'm going to take care of your kids. And then I think that brings a certain level of into the situation.
Commitment.
Wow, he took on responsibility. I can respect him as if he is my father. He's not just temporary.
You said you were 14. See, at 14, your mind has developed into observing certain things like this. And it seems like based on the age of the children is how you navigate. I can't imagine. I remember my mom and her boyfriend had moved in with us. And when he moved in with us, he gradually came in and he was more of a mentor, which earned my respect. And I wanted more of that from him. And he started taking me to the Bulls games, which I didn't even know I loved. Now I'm a Bulls fan for real. But he started doing those things with me. And it felt like he was trying to, or not even trying at all. It felt like he was committed, as you stated, to being there for me and not just my mom. Yeah, I can feel that. Well, guys, those of you that are just tuning in, you're watching Relationshipping with LaDonna, Raeh, and Lorenzo T. Hughes. And we have had these callers on the line, and we're still talking. But if you're just tuning in, I don't want you to say, well, what the heck are they talking about? Because we've gone from talking about the expectation of the significant other when they come into your life as a step parent. We had Pastor Q on that said, well, Lorenzo said there's a difference between dating and being married, what type of step parent you step in and be. And then we've had some people say, well, I've covered and cherished my children and I didn't introduce them until later on and all of those things. And there's always some type of different dynamic that goes into the community of dating when you're not with the children's father. I don't care how you put it. It's never going to be perfect. My question to Pastor Q before he got off was going to be, you know how the Bible says, put your husband first. I don't know which verse it is. I was trying to look it up, but I can't seem to read and listen at the same time. But what do you do when the Bible says, put your husband first, but your children were here first? I just want to know what you all have to say about that.
Okay.
Jacqueline?
Names?
Yes, Jacqueline, go ahead.
I believe the phrase that you're talking about from the Bible is just saying that when you get married, then it's your husband, the wife, everybody. The wife cleaves to the husband, and everybody else comes after the wife or the husband. So that there is a head of the family. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is what it's talking about. You can't be in a relationship with somebody and you're my husband, but you telling me, my kids come first, or that respect level that you should have is not there because my kid is trying to run the house. You have to be aware of what it is that you are. A lot of people believe in the Bible, just like you just used the phrase, right? But what about the people who come into your life who are not believers of the Bible? They don't have any respect for any of that. So with that in mind, you have to be very cautious of any and everything that you are expecting someone else to have those same type of morals or values or anything like that. And that's the part that's important when it comes to anybody getting in a relationship. But I'm going to go back and catch a couple of these comments that I listened to your callers make. One about the disciplining of a child by somebody else who you've married. My mother remarried, and not one of her new partners or stepfathers or any of that ever hit me and my sisters or my brother. And if I had a daughter and I was moving into a relationship, and because you took her to the grocery store, to school and all of that, that doesn't give you carte blanche to whip my daughter. In the first place, I'm not really sure where you coming from in your trauma, what your aggression is, how angry you could possibly be. And therefore, I don't want you to ever get so angry and upset that you take that out on my child and you wound my child, or the fact that my child will grow up one day and say, you let him come in here and beat us.
Yeah. They
the other thing about that, right? Because
they will tell
right, you can't because they absolutely, and so you cannot just because you're marrying somebody and he's taking the kids to the store, he should get to beat your children. But let me just say this one: there's levels
a difference
of discipline.
between discipline and beating. I'm back on.
Okay, can you hold on for a second?
Pastor Q is back.
There you
go. Hold on for a second. You didn't give me a chance before you interrupted.
Hold on.
So
go ahead. Let's land that plane.
No. I'm just saying. Before you interrupted, I was gonna say that when you are disciplining children, you don't have to. We come up as African Americans and slaves. We come up on the whip. And we shouldn't have to beat our children physically. But if you know that you don't beat your children physically, now, because we can beat them with our minds. I heard someone say, all I had to do was look at my son and he'd get himself together. Well, that's the point right there, is that we have to be able to get in control of our children's mental and emotional state of being versus their physical. Because we can no longer beat our children because of corporal punishment. It's against the law. Our children know that it's against the law. So therefore, you can't just be like, okay, I'm a whoop the kids. You can't whoop the kids no more. Whether or not if they show up at school with bruises on their bodies, with wounds on their bodies, then somebody's going to jail, and now you're going to have a record at CPS, Children Division of Family Services. You're going to have something on your record saying that you have now, they've had child abuse against you, and that's going to be very hard to move it off of you.
I think that part is understood because even the parent can't necessarily use corporal punishment where it leaves evidence of excessive corporal punishment. You know what I'm saying? So the term discipline can be taking a phone. I heard someone mention that earlier, or putting them on punishment restrictions. You know what I mean? Because they did something that was unscrupulous or against the rules of the house. So that point of discipline, I definitely welcome.
Yeah, well, we did. There was no disagreement in that part of the discipline. Only to say that when you are saying that I'll do this for your kids, but I need to be able to discipline them. If you have shown me that you are a disciplinarian of your own children and that you use common sense, that you will use compassion. I mean, like somebody else said, well, kids gonna be kids. Now, we're not saying that kids who are out here committing crimes or anything, but when you're raising children, teenagers will be teenagers. You did things when you were a teenager. And I like to think that by this time in this generation, Y, Z, B, D, and X, these kids aren't the same kids that we used to be. Okay? These kids are not us. We can't, our mothers used to slap the taste out of us. We can't slap the taste out of these kids anymore.
Well,
we can't.
I understand your point. I have a fly swatter. Okay, Pastor Q. I know you just jumped in.
Is he still here?
Boy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pastor Q.
I just got back on, and because I was listening to the show, but I was doing something else. I had many other things to do. So I got back on because I heard LaDonna say, I wanted to ask before he got off. And so, but just to the young woman's point or whatever, you got to remember discipline is all forms. I dare, and I'm going to tell you this, and I understand what the law says, and I'm going to tell you what I say, okay?
Right.
I believe in what the scripture says. Spare the child, spare the rod.
There you go, right there.
I believe what the Bible, not what man said. Man can tell me whatever they want to, and you can talk about I'm going to jail and I'm doing it. I didn't say I was going to beat my child. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to beat my child. So, public record, I'm not beating my children. No, I'm not. Am I going to discipline them? Yes, I am. Will I pop them in their lips? Yes, I will. Will I spank them?
That's our corporal punishment. You can't pop your kids in the lip without having.
Hold on. Let them finish. Let them finish.
Yeah, you can't pop your kids in the mouth.
What you could call it what you want, but I'm gonna tell you what I will tell my child. I may be disciplined by law for whatever I'm doing, but there's a great chance that they're going to take you from me and they're going to put you in a place that's going to do you far worse than what I would ever do you. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you this with love. I popped your fingers with love. I took your phone with love. You ran away and all of this type of stuff. I did it with love, trying to show you things. But the next family you get to, it may not love you the way I love you. It may not show it to you the way I show it to you. And so now they putting you like flowers in the attic, placing you above wherever they live at, and you got to stay there. And you stuck, and they bringing you food as if you in jail.
With
So you can
arsenic.
talk about the law.
With
We can
arsenic.
talk
I
about
saw the
law.
movie and I read the book. Okay.
Yeah, you can talk about the law, but I'm gonna tell you something. As a believer, we gonna have to snap some of this foolishness away, because you ain't gonna tell me that I can't obey my word.
Amen.
You're not gonna tell me that. Now you can say what you want to say with the law, but you're not gonna tell me what what I'm not going to do. Those are my kids, not yours. I didn't say beat your children.
Right.
There's a difference. And I think that's when the law needs to step in, when you're beating your children.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're disciplining your children with love, and you snatching things away, and you popping their little fingers because they doing things out of order. Every child is completely different, just like you stated. They are. One child I could look at, and guess what? They straighten. The other child, I got to snatch something away, then they straighten up. The other child, I got to pop, and then they straighten up.
Man, fly swatter.
You just can't discipline every child the same.
Absolutely.
And I'm with you, the caller that said, I am so wholeheartedly with you with making sure you vet whoever you're dating, whoever you're going to marry, before you allow them to do anything with your child. As a matter of fact, vet them before you even let them take your child to the store.
That part.
Vet them. You vet them, not just because they want to discipline, or they're going to discipline by taking something away, or they pop the finger, or whatever the case may be. You vet them. I am in the whole, I got your back. I'm with you. I support that. You vet them, because you need to know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You really do. And you asked the question about them. Before I got off the phone, something to the effect placing your children first or whatever.
No, I said in the Bible it refers to putting your husband first, and then the wife, and then the children. But what if your children were here first?
It don't make a difference. That's your husband. So it don't make a difference who was there first.
So when you tell your husband,
wait, he wasn't your husband. He was your boyfriend, and you still had him.
I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying, that's a general, yeah.
And this wasn't about you. This was an example. And so therefore, that's why I'm with the caller before. When the caller talked about vetting and talked about knowing who you're dealing with, you need to know who you are dealing with. Because how you going to place, it's just a great example, even my wife and I, and we got kids, right? When we go to the store, my wife needs shoes and my son needs shoes, we looking at each other. Who we finna get shoes? My wife, because I know who I'm dealing with, you know what I know what my wife going to say? She going to say, give this baby these shoes. I need to know who I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
You got to, because I understand placing my wife first. I know that. I do that. But I also got a wife that is so compassionate for those kids that guess what? We ain't going to eat at this table because my kids going to have to eat. We're not doing this because the kids need that. That's a good parent. Mm-hmm. That's a good partner that know how to put things in perspective. The problem with us, we got adult kids trying to run our households. Adult kids trying to run your household, and you placing your adult kids before your husband or before your wife. You don't do that. I don't even care if they small kids, but I'm telling you what's really going on. Most of it is adult kids. Or all of these teenagers, they 19 and 18 years old, on their way out the door. Here it is. You can't tell them nothing about their relationship, but they can tell you everything about yours.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be gone up, leave your house and be booed up with someone. And you're going to be left in the house all alone because they done messed up your relationship. Mm. I'm just telling you what life is. Let's be realistic.
And that's the beauty. I definitely respect. Yeah, I definitely respect that. Yeah, I respect a lot of stuff that you say, Pastor Q. And I want to say this really quick before I had to step away. I enjoy everyone that has come on here and have been genuinely transparent, because one of the things that makes me so passionate about these type of conversations is that even though in our lives, especially as a culture, it to me it almost seems like within our lives there's almost like a ball of tangled up fishing line, and we have to really start going through and trying to unravel that. And the only way I think we're going to do this is to be honest and transparent about where we've been, where we are, and how we're going to fix things moving forward. Because sadly, I don't think we're going to finish it or get to that point in our generation, but maybe not even in the next generation. But at some point, I believe that we have to start being transparent with one another on, the experiences that we've had, how they affected our lives, and what we can do to correct that moving forward. I think one of the callers mentioned us forgetting that we were all children before. Yes, we were all children before, and we've been somewhere before. And moving forward, it's like, what did you learn from that, and what are you going to do different so that things are better moving forward? Sometimes we continue to make those same mistakes. I hear people say, well, when you grow up witnessing or experiencing a certain thing, we tend to repeat those things. But as a adult thinking logically, if you know that this was painful for you as a child, or it was disheartening or disappointing to you as a child, how can we, as logically thinking adults, repeat the same thing that was painful for us as a child to someone else, as adults? So, like, moving forward, when having these type of conversations, I would love to always end them with some type of solution moving forward. What do we do after we didn't have this conversation? We've been transparent with each other. We've learned how we felt, because a couple of y'all have touched my heart. Because even though we're having this conversation right now, I am by no means, I'm no professional in this matter. It's something that I've experienced, something that have touched me in a personal way. I've done these things. I've been there, been doing, and you're moving forward. We trying to figure out, what do we do moving forward as a solution to correct these problems? Yes, I think this is one of those steps. Getting on here, having open, honest conversation. I mean, just putting it all on the table. Like this particular platform is by no means to shame anyone, embarrass anyone, but to come on and have a conversation as a collective relationship of Black folks, white folks, or whatever, saying, hey, look, this is what I've been through, and this is how it made me feel. And I would love to hear someone else's solution or what they did, so that things can be better. So I commend everyone that's come on and had and contribute something to this conversation. I commend y'all, and I thank you for it.
We thank you. So we've had Regina Hall, Tammy McDowell, Jacqueline Underwood, Alex Mashaw, Camila Pointer, and Pastor Quentin. I really want to say that all of your contributions make perfect sense from different perspectives, even down to, like, Camila, you were speaking from being that child that had that step parent come into your home and want to take over, so to speak. That right there is huge, because do parents think about, we started off saying, okay, what are the expectations of the person in the relationship for their significant other to step in as the step parent, but how does that affect the children? Real talk. Did they even consider the children? Even though you have waited to introduce them. I mean, you can wait all you want. People have waited to get married and it didn't work out. People have waited to introduce the kids and it didn't work out. But once you do bring it together, what are the expectations? How, and like Lorenzo said, how do you move forward with having a certain expectations of the other person to be that step parent? Now, Pastor Q corrected us on step parent. He said steps are something that you walk on.
Yes.
He said it is the other parent. And I'd like to change that narrative, because maybe a step parent is not respected versus the other parent. Regina, you mentioned that your ex and your current got along. And I've seen that. I've seen that on several occasions in Black households, which gave me the idea that is what I ultimately wanted, because I knew it had to happen because I was no longer with their father. So having it where there's a line of communication in case I'm unavailable, they can get on the phone, and having a certain type of respect for each other so that I don't have to pick and choose who can come to the birthday party, the graduation, the wedding, the baby shower. It just makes it so much easier, and it's easier even on your children, for real.
Too much.
All right. So go ahead. I hear somebody saying something.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, oh.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
That was Regina. Go ahead, Regina.
Well, it's funny that, we've had that for so many years, and then he ended up getting married, and the spouse that he has, I guess she was very jealous of our relationship. And so she divided that. So now that my children are grown and everything, and he's married, it's no longer like that now.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, isn't it sad?
Mm-hmm. Is that in the book?
And no, that's not in my book. My that's gonna come later. But no, yeah, it was basically divided, and I don't know how to fix it, but my daughters set up a counseling session for them, and he didn't show up, and she didn't want to show up either.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
You know what? I appreciate, our past experience, our lived experiences, but when I hear, we only talk from our perspective in our circle, because as I sit here and I listen, so my daughter grows up with her father and his wife. She has a few children. He has 4 different families. He's been a father to all of his children. And I call him my baby daddy, and I call her my baby mama, because she helped me raise my daughter with him. Those are just our pet names. I mean, I know people see baby mama and baby daddy as a negative, but it's really our pet names,
No, I like it because it makes her feel included. You've brought her into it, yeah.
Right, because when I call their house, and I can call their house, I say, hey, baby mama, where my baby daddy at? And when we have functions, I'm always welcome at their home. I'm auntie and I'm mama to her children. We had a very blended relationship, and I like to hear a little bit more. Right, I like to hear a little bit more where a father has done everything he can in order to blend his families. People want to say, oh, he got all of these kids, but you know what? It's something to be able to manage a family, to make sure that your family is blended. I come from a blended family. My father was married 1, 2, 3 times. My brothers and sisters and my father kept us together. And now that he is gone, we are there for one another. And I thought to myself, Dad must have really knew what he was trying to do, because we need each other right now. And so he made sure everybody loved mama. I'm always going to love my mama. But let me say something about my daddy. I'm going to love my daddy to the end of time, because he was a father. And he is the one who set the example of what fatherhood should be for me. Not only did he set the example for what fatherhood should be, but what it should, to be a parent. He was an I can't even say the word. I haven't said so much. Anyway, authoritarian. I'm sorry. Let me just keep going. He did the whipping, but he didn't do any cussing. He didn't call you names. He talked about the fact that he believes you ought to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. The truth is the truth, and a lie is a lie. Now, I'm going to give you, people who tell the truth have courage, even though you're going to get in trouble for telling the truth. But I'm going to respect you for telling the truth. I'm going to respect the kind of person you are. Jacqueline, if you meet a man who treats you wrong, that's a lesson. The second time, you know better. Now, the third time, I'm going to have to ask you, what's wrong with you? And so when we enter into relationships with people, and I know that we want to be with them, I know we think that they are our person, but just remember this, while you're wanting them to be your person, are they being the person that you need to have in this relationship or this marriage around your children? So you ask, Lorenzo, you like to be able to wrap this up in a nice little bow. Sometimes therapy does not work for everyone, but it is certainly an even playing field when you go to a therapist and you go as the mother, you go as the father, you go individually as children, and then you have a family session. This gives everybody an opportunity to talk about what the problem is, because naturally most people think, oh, you're the problem. No, you're the problem. But if we did some role playing, Lorenzo, to wrap it up, if we sat down with our families and said, you know what, let's do a little role playing. You're going to be your mom. I'm going to be you. You're going to be your sister. You're going to be your brother. And so we're going to ask a question, and I want you to tell me, as me, how do you think I will respond? So now you're giving your family a chance to process.
Yeah.
Process what it was that you said to them that might have, when you said, I don't want to talk about it. Well, why don't you want to talk about it? Because you're going to say the same thing you always say. But when we're role playing and we're mimicking our parents, we get a chance to hear what our family members have to say. We get a chance for them to process it and not to belittle them. Someone said something about belittling, but to be able to understand. In therapy, we do something that's called play therapy. A lot of times kids will not talk to you about it, but you set the scenario and say, hey, pick out some of those toys, pick out some of those little people, put them in the sand, tell me a story. They'll put the people in the sand. Well, my father, he didn't come home last night, so my mama started hollering and screaming, and there she is standing by the front door waiting on my daddy to come home, and then she got mad at my sister who's sitting over here, and then my sister started crying. So you see how they're processing what happened? And a lot of times we don't give children a chance to process. Matter of fact, we don't give adults a chance to process, because we always say, well, you always talking and cutting me off. You don't ever give me a chance to say what I have to say. Sure, you have a chance to say what you have to say. We blame it on other people. We never get a chance to say what we have to say, and we start walking out the door. And so we need to be mindful of the trauma that we've all been through. So I would say, Lorenzo, if you're looking for a way, how do we fix this? The children of today, again, Generation X, Y, Z, B, T, F, and W, they're not us. And we're never going to get them to understand why is it so important to us to be a part of a family. Because right now they've zoned out on a family. They're on their computer, they're watching TikTok. Every single thing they want to do is on the outside of the family. They've zoned out on the family.
And it's not real.
People are like, right, and it's not real. So how do you, Lorenzo, bring your family back together so that you can pull them back into the end zone?
Let me explain this to you. And this is for everyone. I can remember, I'm going to say probably, maybe, I'm going to say I was probably around 8th, 9th grade. I was so excited as I got closer to the opportunity to take on the role of manhood, right? And I think most little boys are excited about becoming a man from the point when we start to develop muscles, to getting that first couple of hairs on our chin and that shadow on our lip. We're excited about that. I can remember vividly having the excitement in planning in my mind what it was going to be like when I became a man. And it was like, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this amazing job. I'm going to find me this amazing woman. We're going to get married. I'm going to become a father, and I'm going to have I don't know if I was thinking of, the house with the white picket fence, but I was excited about taking on that role. And what I say when I mean when I say that, and what I'm gonna try to make this long story short, is when I had my first daughter, it was unexpected, but I was so excited about it. But what I'm saying is that many of us became parents not knowing how to parent. Nobody sat us down and said, this is how you do it. This is A, B, C, and D. Most of us learned parenting through trial and error. We figured it out. And some of us got it right to a degree. Some of us haven't been getting it right at all. But as we learned when it was me and my kid's mother, we've had constant conversations on how to do what to do. I think mothers have an instinct on how to mother. Somehow it's just there. And we started learning these things together. Now, as my kids got older, there were things that they had done or things that I saw in them emotionally and on their face that reminded me of things that I didn't appreciate when I was a child. For example, when me and their mother would get into an argument, I would see this look of fear on my children's face that would immediately de-escalate me because I watched my mother fight with men when I was a child, and I knew how terrifying that was. So one of the things that I had conversations with my kids about was that I remember it was one incident that really hurt me to my core to see this look of fear on my children's face, that we sat down and had a conversation, and I let them know. I said, listen, you are a part of this family. I said, if there's something that you don't agree with, or you have a question about, or if there's something that you're afraid of, something that makes you feel uncomfortable about, you have every right to intervene, come in and say something or address it right away without being disciplined. And they had that right. And it went from there. Once we established that, and they were comfortable with doing so, because they did it after that. We had further conversations. To the point to where it was, if they disagreed with my level of discipline, if they thought it was too much or it was extreme, they had every right to contest it. And we would have almost like a court system. I would listen to what they had to say. They had the freedom to say, Dad, I think that's your punishment or your disciplinary action is a little bit excessive or is extreme. And I would ask them why they believed that, so that they would have a voice within the family. So I guess my question as a therapist, and anybody else that want to chime in, is I think you make a very valid point to establishing a point where the children are a part of the family. And I guess moving forward with that idea is, how do we, not even as biological parents, because I think before you can understand how to be a step parent, as we called it, I believe we have to understand how to be parents biologically as well. Because I think if you are somewhat successful, parenting biologically, that should to a degree carry over to parenting another parent's children. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense to you at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I guess my question is, where do we go? I understand the role playing, and I think that makes perfect sense. But I think, let's say for someone who doesn't go to therapy, what can they do to start integrating the children into feeling like, hey, I can go to my biological parent, indirect parent or step parent, and have an open conversation about how I feel? Because I think sometimes children, I think me and LaDonna had this conversation before about that old saying, stay in a child's place. You see what I'm saying? I think a lot of us grew up hearing that, stay in a child's place. What is a child's place? Am I not a part of this family? Do I not have feelings or emotions that need to be expressed, or and I think sometimes that has hurt us to a degree when, as children, when we have been going through pain, we question whether we have a voice in the family.
Yeah. Well, along with that, your adult children will tell you what type of parent you were. You may think that you did everything right, or everything as close to right as possible. But when those kids grow up and you have an honest conversation, if you are brave enough to have that conversation with them, they will tell you what kind of parent you really were. And to your point, Lorenzo, my son told me that I made the mistake of telling them to stay in a child's place. And I remember why I was doing it. Of course, I was told that too. But I was telling them that because I wanted them to be a kid. I wanted them to stay in a child's place and not worry about grown folks stuff. Well, guess what that did to them? It didn't give them the tools needed to transition from 17 to 18. So overnight, I had to stay in a child's place, and now all of a sudden I'm grown. Now, I may have given them certain tools, but that voice stayed in their head until they were 30. When I was like, I had to apologize. I'm so sorry that I said stay in a child's place forever, because I didn't say forever, but it sounded like forever. But one of the things that really brought me to bring this conversation with Lorenzo as a collective is because our audience out there they look like us. A lot of them look like us, and this dynamic comes up so often. But what are your expectations in becoming involved with a woman who has children or a man who has children? And I say this, back when I was a teenage mother and I was dating this guy that I was at the time really liking. I really liked him, and I was very hopeful because he was on his way to everything that I had hoped for in a man. And he had an honest conversation with me, and he pulled me to the side in my mother's hallway because I was still living with my mother. And he said, I'm not ready to be a father. And I said, well, I'm not pregnant. I'm what do you mean? He said, you have children. And if I come in your life for real, then I'm going to have to be a father to them. That stuck with me for the rest of my life. Like, you would think that a mother but remember, I was a young mother. I was 18, just about 18, 19, whatever. And when he said that, it sparked something. Now, if you have noise in the background, feel free to mute your phone, please. I muted Alex. Alex, if you want to come unmute it, I can unmute you. But there was noise in the background. So if you have noise in the background, please mute your phone. But because of that, it made me kind of look at things differently. And being a young mother, you're not thinking, okay, I am mother now, and anyone who dates me is going to have to be a father. No, I'm still a kid with two kids, So in growing up, I realized, and I decided to navigate differently because I have to take into consideration that my children are going to grow up with a narrative. What do I want that narrative to be? Do I want them to constantly remember that there was this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy? Or do I got to minimize that, right? I got to minimize it as much as possible. When I got married and had children, there was no room for that because I was married. But that marriage didn't work out. So here I am again. My last relationship didn't even meet my kids. It was no need. We were together almost a year. And I wasn't feeling it, and ultimately I was trying to wait and be patient to see if things turned the corner, but I wasn't feeling it. But I know that I have certain expectations. If I am like dating purposefully, absolutely. I am too old to be just kicking it. Okay, them days are over. 20s, kicking it. 30s, kicking it. 40s, we ain't kicking it. Okay, I done kicked the can. So at that point, it's like, okay, because I have I'm a sandwich generation also, because I got my parents and I got my kids. But then there's me. And my expectations for my significant other would be at some point that they establish a mentorship or trusting relationship with my children. I want my children to know, yes, you have your father. Absolutely. But I also want them to know that, yes, they have you too. They have the person that I've chosen and inserted. And this is going to be someone that establishes trust and mentorship with them. That is my expectation. Now, you have to be careful because if that person that you have those expectations for, you may ask the questions, have you ever been a step parent? what was it like being a step parent? And they may tell you they were the greatest step parent ever. And you're like, yeah, I want some of that. Absolutely, you want some of that. When I got married, I asked what type of home they were brought up in. They were brought up in the home that I wanted to have, but that didn't necessarily translate over. Okay, I didn't get that. But what if a person is done raising their kids, and you expect them to come in and help you raise yours? How does that? Is that fair? Is that fair to them? Did they go, woo, finally, I'm done. I done got them out the door. And then here you come with a tight waist, and a cute face, whatever. And they slip and fall into this relationship. And yeah, things are going great, but it's those kids. Like, is it fair to expect them to step in and step up even though they've already done that with their own children? That's a question. That's a question to answer, and that's real talk right there.
I think it's fair.
Well, I think what's fair, listening to what you had said, LaDonna, is that the guy that you was dating, he told you up front, he was honest and said he didn't want kids. He could have lied to you, but at least you knew up front, which is one of the things that, like I said, Pastor Q had mentioned. Hey, be upfront and honest, and that'll eliminate us from falling into an even worse situation if we know up front that person's expectations. So I'm it's unfortunate the relationship didn't work out for you, but he was honest with you. So I'm happy for that part. That way you didn't get caught up into a situation that you didn't deserve to be in. But going back and looking, through the notes, I think everybody has said some impactful things that have, like I said, have touched me in so many different ways. I'd love to have a part 2 on this. I think there's a couple other conversations I believe that have come out of a lot of the comments that in this particular call. Again, I think, step parenting is probably one of the, I'm not going to say one of the most challenging, but it is one of those challenging aspects of our relationship. I think I believe one of the callers said something like, in the sense of life keeps lifing. It does. It keeps lifing. I said, even when you're having children, I've listened to a lot of callers and they've had children and been in relationships, and they're not with the biological parent, and they've been in relationships afterwards. Life keeps lifing. And for me, I would hate to see someone not to be able to enjoy life and companionship just because they have children. You asked the question, is it fair that someone steps in and takes, well, if they're willing to do it, we know, listen, I would like to think they know ahead of time before they take on the job or the experience.
Like you didn't have your kids hid in the attic
right,
somewhere.
Like you didn't have them hidden somewhere. I would like to think that they knew ahead of time. But I believe that if you care for a person, if you genuinely care for a person, you are genuinely going to care for their children because you care for that person. I believe there's a trickle down effect. I believe Pastor Q mentioned that he mentioned like I said, I don't know the exact words, but he mentioned that vetting process that you have to go through. Mm-hmm. And when you're married, that means you've already went through the vetting process because you made it to that point.
Well, you should have.
Yeah, you should have went through the vetting process by then.
He did refer to flowers in the attic, and she didn't even tell the guy she had kids.
Absolutely.
Right. He thought he was marrying a woman with no children.
And the beautiful thing about that vetting process and getting married is that it has that, and you mentioned it was the I don't remember your exact words, but it was a scripture that talked about what the husband and the wife,
yeah,
and then the children.
Yeah,
that works if the vetting process, that whole process was done properly, because there's the trickle down effect that trickles down to your children. When you're in a relationship that was established properly, yes, there's going to be that trickle. It's okay and it's safe to put the other person first. It's not saying that you're neglecting your children. It's to me, it's more so you're looking out for your children because of what you're doing has that trickle down effect on them. That attention that you're putting into your marriage or your relationship by putting it first, it has that trickle down effect to your children.
Well, it can also have a backfire effect because the kids might feel that they were here first. And I know Regina had said that she told her significant other that, look, my kids come first. Now, although that may be true, telling a man that, or if someone told me that, it would make me feel some kind of way. Now, I'm not saying that I would I would probably back off because it says that at some point it's going to be you all against me. I would just see it that way. But because you're telling me that. It's like, if you, as a parent, I don't think that, and Regina, no shade to you, but a tiger doesn't have to tell you that he's a tiger. He just roars. Of course my kids are going to come first in my heart, in my responsibility portal. But I have to establish some type of respect factor in a hierarchy that makes sense to a household. And that's why we have households that are kind of on the rocky terms of kids can really break that structure, and they will. They can be manipulative. They can be cruel.
Let me ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about step parenting, am I correct? Or
yes, we are. Well, other parenting.
Would we be having this conversation if these people that was in biological relationships had put their relationships first or their marriages first?
Oh.
Would we be having this conversation about step parenting?
There wouldn't be any step parenting. Well, to a degree.
But I'm saying so I asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Would we be having? In my second question, would we be in the condition that we're in with our children right now today in the city of Chicago when we look at what
Regina's
children
in
are
Virginia.
out there doing today, or
She's
Virginia,
in
wherever
Virginia.
you at, it's everywhere. When we look at the condition of our children today, and we all know that there is a condition out there. If we were a fractured family as we are today, and what I'm saying is I'm trying to piece together the conversations that we've had, and I was listening to what Pastor Q was saying. If we would have put our relationships first, whether you put your wife first or you put your husband first, would we be in the condition that we're in with our children today? Meaning that the example that they're seeing, because I'm not saying single parenting doesn't work or it can't work, but we're building a perception in the minds of our children. And I would like to believe that we're trying to correct that perception some kind of way. That's why in my past I've been able to do and participate in a lot of mentorship programs, because there's a lot of people out there looking for a mentor for their children. They're looking for something. There are programs out there that I've been involved with where people want their children, their sons, if I could be, exact, to have some other type of guidance than, being around their mother and their sisters all the time. They want them out experiencing what it's like to be around a male figure. And I've heard these conversations in a lot of different cases. Not saying that, that women can't raise men effectively, but there is an element that's going to be missing regardless. Mm-hmm. Regardless. And this is by no means trying to down, a woman's parenting, but when my wife and I divorced and separated and I was raising my daughters, there's no way that I felt like I could raise women.
Right.
Yeah, I was braiding hair and things like that. And I wasn't doing it as effective, but I had to learn it.
You had the LL Cool J thing going.
You know, it would, I started out with, like most men, we started out doing, you got that one Afro puff, the big puff, then you had the two Afro puffs, then you got one cock deuce to the side.
Cock deuce. I haven't heard that in forever.
Then you start learning how to braid and using the pink gel and trying to get that shiny look. But what I'm saying is, so by no means did I feel like, in my heart that I felt like I could raise women.
Well, look,
you see what I'm saying? But their mother was in their lives, their mother was in their lives. So I was confident that they would get that from her. There was no way that I said, you know what, I'm going to raise my girls. I'm going to show you how to be a woman. I'm going to teach you and raise you how to be a woman. You will never hear that come out of my mouth.
We got Alex. Alex has something to say.
Come on.
I'm trying to slide in because I think Lorenzo talk. He has his eyes closed. He's not seeing the cues here. I'm like, look, Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
To me, it all boils down to, I'm gonna put it in the sports aspect. You got to be a coach, like, to your kids, basically. And you got to run. Their plays. There's a playbook. Every team has a different playbook. There's gonna be some plays that's similar, but they got to be ran different. So there's no blueprint to how to raise biologically or unbiologically. There's no blueprint to it. You basically have to play it by ear. There's like a schematic, maybe. You guys follow me?
Yeah.
So this topic, we could talk about this to the end of next year.
Yeah, well,
there's no basic structure
we're not
how
gonna,
to do that.
We're not going to talk about it to the end of next year. We're going to get off actually in about 2 minutes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
I've been in like 4 different relationships that had kids that I raised from. I got with a girl and she was 7 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked her and I was there when she birthed the kid.
Yeah.
Me and the dad cool.
God bless
my
you.
My present wife, her daughter, me and him cool. We don't have no problem. We gonna go to birthday parties together. We gonna smoke a cigar together. So it's all about how you are.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It takes me back. It takes me back to what Pastor Q preached on. You have to be rooted. For when them storms come, you might bend, but you ain't gonna break. You'll bounce right back.
Yes.
Like them palm trees. So that's basically what it boils down to. You got to be rooted to handle those storms, because them storms gonna come.
Well, I tell you what,
I've landed.
I love it. I love it when you all land those planes. I love it. So watch this. You're watching Relationshiping on the LaDonna Raeh Show YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and share this link, because you guys made some really pertinent comments and you want to be heard, okay? Share that link so that other people can hear what you had to say about the topic. That makes a lot of sense, right? And you can continue to comment on this particular video by going to the YouTube channel and finding it under the Relationshiping playlist, okay? So I'm going to put the link. The link to the show is on our Facebook page, is on my Facebook page. Lorenzo, I think you shared it on yours. And then I will put it in the chat so that you guys can share it as well. And that way people can hear what you had to say about this topic. But we had some really great comments.
Amazing.
I think we started off with the expectation, and then we went into something else. But let me tell you something. Everything that was mentioned, even from a biblical standpoint, a spiritual standpoint, and a mental health standpoint, it was all necessary to bring it all together and have everything that is necessary on this particular topic, because this is a large topic. I love this. We'll have a part 2, 3, and 4, but it's ongoing because it's relationshiping. There you go. I put the link in the chat. Lorenzo, I know that, this started with a conversation, but it brought, you all the callers, they brought so much energy and insight and even a little spice to the conversation. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please do not hesitate. Help yourself and hit that subscribe button. It's free, so you never miss an episode. Right. And share it with your friends.
And I'm gonna end with this. Step parenting. It's not like building a family tree. It's like building a family forest. You got a lot of different, trees out there that you got a forest that you bringing together, and it's by no means a easy task. Bonding with you know children that aren't biologically yours. It can be a slow process, and it's okay. It's okay. In many cases, it can be a slow process, but with this conversation, I'm happy that it turned out the way it did because again, one of my goals with having these type of conversations is bringing people in to engage in these type of conversations with the hopes of coming up with a solution moving forward. So I appreciate everybody that called in and chimed in and the transparency. And I learned a lot. I hope the people that were listening in and that will be listening in also learned a lot. I got several takeaways, and I hope a lot of the listeners out there had some takeaways. So, yes, so I hope we can continue this conversation.
I just want to share the forest. I put a forest up so you guys could see that if it's not a family, it's not building a family tree. It's like building a forest. I couldn't help it.
I see. Oh,
Oh,
great.
all right, guys. Look, it's we, us, and our. I love it. This is that power moment that we say we'll see you next time on the Relationshiping Show. I think we'll be back here this Thursday or Friday, something like that. But yeah, I think it is Thursday. But you have to stay tuned on our channel so you can see what's coming up. And we can't wait to hear from you. Go ahead and lock this phone number in, 312-357-5141, and call it. You can put LaDonna and Lorenzo. I like to be called LaDonna Raeh, though. But LaDonna Raeh and Lorenzo, or you can put relationshiping so that when you call in and you see it, you just tap it and it dials you right in. And we will take your call live and on the air on the Relationshiping Show where we talk about it all.
Absolutely.
I'm back on WVON on Friday.
Uh-oh.
So if you want to tune in to WVON, which can also be heard on iHeartRadio, please tune in and call in because I'm trying to get that slot 9 to 2. That's 9 a.m. Central to 12 p.m. lunchtime. And I'm back on Saturday. Lorenzo's on too with the Wake Up Show Chicago on Saturday on WVON. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got. I think it's that time.
It's that time.
How's it feel? You ready to go?
Yeah, well, let's do it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Love y'all. Happy holidays to you.
You're not. We're back. We're gone for real. Bye.